Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes.
Why does he always do that?
How did that work out for them?
It worked out perfectly fine. It was an accepted norm of society.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, that is... Oh, he's kind of thinking a little bit. You can kind of see it on his face.
Well, I'm glad you have great
Did he just say no?
No.
Well,
Charlie Kirk got to fly out to Cambridge to be able to debate some high-tier students over there. How did it go, you might wonder? There were some highs, there were some lows, and there was some... I don't know what else to rhyme with. But we're just gonna jump right into it, cut through the bullshit. If you like what you're about to see, like, subscribe, comment, and share this video to everybody that you know. Either way, let's get started.
firstly, thank you for coming here, Charlie. It's nice to meet you. So my question is, I am a Conservative, and I did back Trump in 2024. But I'm troubled that the GOP refuses to hold him accountable for his personal and legal failings. And how can we claim to stand for moral values and the Constitution while excusing behaviour that we condemn from the left? Isn't it the hypocrisy undermining our credibility, especially with the next generation?
What specifically do you have issue with?
Well, the countless things that he's done.
The what?
Stormy Daniels. The bus interview that he put down to locker room talk.
Why did he get so nervous out of nowhere? Like, he was asked for a few examples of Trump breaking the law, and all of a sudden he's stuttering and stuff like that. I don't understand it. But why do you support him, despite all of these things that you're listing off, man? I don't...
Abortion specifically. Why do you think abortion's wrong specifically?
Well, you agree murder is wrong?
I agree. Okay, so this is where we get to the question, right? Because what is it about murder you say is wrong? Like, why is murder wrong?
Well, because it's a human being, not just because it has consciousness or because it's of a certain age, because it's a human.
Well, what is it that gives human being this moral worth?
Not its consciousness.
That's a good thing to push on, by the way. Pushing on what gives these beings worth. That is very good. It's something that I don't see a lot of people do, is actually push for the very foundations of conservatives, let alone anybody's ideology.
I didn't say it's consciousness.
I know that. I can imagine it's because it is a human being, because it has a soul.
And what is this soul? Where does this come from? This idea that it's...
Exactly. I mean, again,
That's a very egoist thing to say. Where does this come from? Where does this made-up morality that you are talking about come from? And that's kind of like the root of my ideology, too, to be entirely clear and kind of transparent as to why I like that argument so much. These ideas, these abstract concepts that we allow to rule over us are basically non-existent. They're basically like ghosts that are allowed to haunt us and control our thoughts. That's basically what Christianity and all other kinds of religions are, which is why I really like what this guy is saying.
Greeks postulated that it is the entirety of your being.
Okay, the Greeks? Buddy, you're a Christian. Why are you citing the Greeks?
Can laugh. I mean, it's true. I mean, every civilization has had a different belief, but agreed upon ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West and what the birth certificate of my country articulates, is that every human being is more than just matter. It's more than just a clump of cells, but it also has an invisible element to you that will live beyond you.
So basically this creed, which is completely made up, there's no actual logical reason to follow it, is why you're pro-life. That is the basis of you being pro-life. I honestly expected a Bible quote or something like that. I didn't expect him to pull out this stupid-ass creed that I don't think very many people have heard of.
The only thing that happens at conception is these two cells fuse.
No,
Right?
DNA is created. A zygote.
DNA is not created.
A DNA. No, that's not true. The DNA. DNA coding at the zygote. Hold on. Time out.
Yeah, let me finish.
Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Charlie,
Does a zygote have a unique marker?
You have to let me speak. You have to
answer it. Yes or no. Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Doing pretty good there, hammering him home to be able to control the conversation. That's kind of something that I've noticed a lot of these kind of guys do as well, is that in order to keep somebody in a certain box that they could control, you just keep hammering them with the same question over and over again until they answer, and then you follow up with another question and basically keep control of the discussion. That's what I think Charlie is trying to do currently, at least.
DNA is not created. You have the father has his own genome, the mother has her own genome. They fuse. This is why you have the same characteristics, similar ones to your mother, similar ones to your father. That's why you have similar characteristics to your siblings. DNA is not created, right? So when you ask me, where does a human being come from? I can say to you, it starts at conception, but all conception is these two cells joining, right? But these two cells were created, the mother cells were created long before, they were created when she was a fetus. So there's none of this DNA being produced, right? So we can't establish. The only thing that happens at conception is these two cells fuse.
Well, to play devil's advocate here, you are making a new DNA. A new DNA is being created naturally when you have these two different molecules come together, right? I guess you can make an argument there that it's a new DNA. The fusions of two different DNA is a new DNA. I guess you can make that argument to play devil's advocate. But I'm also not a very big abortion debater, so what do I know?
Now, this idea that means that for some reason suddenly that moral worth comes in, but it wasn't there before when you had these two cells who had half the DNA. But suddenly there's a
correct. Yeah, something magical happens at that.
It's not magical, Charlie. We know about it.
Oh yeah, something magical happens. It's called science.
This.
Well, hold on.
Charlie.
Time out. Hold on.
He did get in there. I'm not gonna lie. That was really fucking funny.
I promise you, I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to score points on you. This is genuine.
We call it the miracle of life for a reason. We've not been able to yet replicate human life development outside of the womb.
We call it the miracle of life because, yes, it's something beautiful, the ability to form a new...
Magical.
It's not... You say magical as in, oh, it's beautiful, it's an incredible thing that...
That is such a stupid fucking word to use, especially in front of a bunch of Cambridge students. Like, the word magical? You sound delusional when you call it magical, man. What the hell? That is such a weird word choice. You don't look good when you say something like that.
Happens, of course, but it's not incredible in the sense we don't know what's going on. There's no new DNA coming out of nowhere.
Hold on, but time out. Isn't there a separate DNA though than the mother? Like,
yes, from the father.
Okay, yes, but it's not the father's DNA either. A new coding is created.
Charlie,
you are a blend of the two. And so when did your life begin?
That's why I said earlier, right? You're technically making a new one out of two of them.
Can I explain my opinion on abortion, just so you can understand? I would agree, as many reasonable people would, that at 9 months, it's unreasonable to expect someone to get an abortion, right? Unless you have some extreme circumstances. But for an elective abortion seems a bit radical to me. But it also seems radical to say that a woman who has just, those cells have just fused, to deny her of an abortion also seems wrong to me. Because that zygote is not capable of suffering, as far as we know.
So by what moral standard? Is that just your opinion? Where did you get that moral standard from?
Oh, shit. Yeah, there we go. Now he's on... Now this... The other guy is on the back foot now, because here's the issue with, like, secular morality and stuff, right? It doesn't really have a deity to be able to point at as the authority. They just kind of make it up. At least Christians have a God they could point at and say, that's the authority on where my morality lies. Secular people, atheists and stuff like that, don't really have that. So I'm curious as to where he's actually going to get his morality from. Outside of maybe pointing at a moral framework. But even then, you don't really have an authority that created that moral framework per se, like a god.
Bad thing. We all know suffering's a bad thing. That's an objective fact, right?
Hold on. So you do believe in objective morality?
I believe that suffering is an objectively negative. So
if you can't feel it, is it okay?
What do you mean if you can't?
You can't feel the pain. Is it okay to inflict the pain?
Exactly. That's where
no one's suffering
going.
From it. If you have a scenario where nobody is suffering from something, then yes,
he's going to bring up like a fucking somebody in comatose or something, isn't he?
Something is only a moral question if it affects someone's well-being.
Uh-oh.
So let me just make sure I understand this correctly. That if it doesn't affect their well-being, so dementia patients that don't know who they are.
Yep, exactly. It's always that fucking scenario. When you're like a secular person and you have to be put on the back foot about the morality around your views on abortion, it is so easy to get tripped up into these kinds of scenarios where it's like, so what about dementia patients? What about somebody that's in a coma? What about somebody that's on life support, that's unconscious and stuff like that and brain dead? It is such a minefield being somebody based in like a moral framework without any kind of God to appeal to, man. I swear, it is difficult. Like, you don't have a real rational answer to this kind of question that they propose. It is a real, genuine issue with secular morality.
Where they're from. Can we execute dementia patients because they're confused about their well-being?
Can you imagine a scenario?
Or Alzheimer's patients.
Charlie,
Alzheimer's patients don't really know much about anything. Can we schedule them for execution because they can't technically suffer?
I'll respond. So, can you imagine a scenario where we lived in a society where we killed people when they suffered from dementia, were incapable of suffering, and we killed them, right? It's not a scenario that involves an absence of suffering. There's still suffering involved. Imagine you grow up thinking, my dad could be killed at any moment because he's going to get dementia. Imagine living your life thinking, I could get dementia and suddenly I'd be killed by my state.
Imagine a world where you slaughter 1 million babies every year in America.
Charlie, it's not slaughter.
That is a pretty loaded claim. And for his audience, at least, that can work pretty well. And for a more unbiased apolitical audience watching this, that could work for at least some of them. That is a strategic, like, heavily loaded moral claim that he lobbied. People on the left especially will underestimate how effective something like that can be as like a zinger given by pro-life people and stuff like that. Very short sentences that kind of just stick into the mind even after you're done watching the debate and stuff like that. That can potentially sway somebody or at least plant seeds of doubt for them.
When the sperm and egg were separate, you were not yet a fused human being. You were not created uniquely.
DNA existed.
In image.
Your DNA existed. I thought.
Well, no, the parts of your DNA existed. Your DNA did not exist. It's like saying that we have a full car just because we have all the parts. It was not yet put together until conception happens and the zygote was formed. Thank you. I think we have.
Can we move on to the next question, please? Thank you.
What I would say in that situation, if I was in this dude's shoes, as somebody who's not religious or doesn't believe in this creed of the West or care about what the Greeks say, why should I change my opinion to agree to you when I'm operating in this certain framework? Like, the entire point of debates is supposed to be able to sway people's minds, right? Why should atheists give a shit about what your God or what your creed says if they've never given a shit about it to begin with? Put him on the back foot and make him answer those kinds of questions, and you'll probably smush him pretty easily. Like, he's media trained, he will probably find a way out of it, but you do immediately put him on the back foot by putting the burden of trying to sway people's opinions onto him.
Biological anthropology. I've learned that moral codes and social norms have always been fluid, shaped by time, culture, power.
I like this guy already.
Many ancient and recent societies embrace same-sex relationships and even the idea of third genders well before Western conservatism even existed. So when you claim that modern conservative values represent some kind of universal, objective moral truth, like you said on your chair over there, aren't you just defending a selective, historically recent ideology that erases most of human history and targets people who have always been part of it?
That is a really good question, a really good way of framing it, because he does cherry pick a lot of history to make his point.
Can you point to me a great power that endorsed same-sex marriage? Not cohabitation, but marriage.
Ancient Mesopotamia.
As marriage. As
As
recognized.
marriage that exists.
Whoa, he came in hot with an actual example. Holy shit.
100%.
That is good. I like that. Oh man, he must be shaking in his boots right now a little bit.
How did that work out for them?
It worked out perfectly fine. It was an accepted norm of society.
Okay, I still think it's wrong.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, that is... Wow, he just gave up really fucking quick. I give it to Sweater Boy already.
Swiftly moving on. So you said it was based on scripture and you believe that there are moral, objective, universal truths.
Yes, there are.
So
murder is wrong today and murder was wrong 2,000 years ago.
Right, okay.
No, it wasn't. Murder used to be like super common way back in the day. It really depends on who you're murdering, but it still was fine 2,000 years ago. They fucking murdered Jesus on the cross, right?
Okay, but so just to clarify, you believe that this is in the Bible. This is laid out in the Bible that man shall not sleep with man, and so therefore...
Well, it's also repeated throughout the New Testament as well. In the book of Matthew, Jesus reaffirms the biblical standard for marriage.
Okay, so I'm going to make two very, very quick points. So the first, so if we look at the Old Testament in isolation, just to start off with as an example, so let's look at Exodus 35:2, which suggests that if you work on the Sabbath, you should be put to death. If you look at Leviticus 11:7, it suggests that if you have pork, you should be put to death. Let me finish, I'll be done. If you plant two crops side by side, you should be stoned by your entire village. If you wear a suit, which you are wearing now, that contains two different fibers intertwined into the same jacket, you should be burned to the stake by your own mother. Now, following that rationale, in Leviticus 18:22, and it states that man shall not sleep with man, why aren't we burning ourselves at the stake as well? Why aren't we stoning ourselves to death?
He's coming with receipts. Bro's coming in heavy hitting with that fucking sweater.
And can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial, the moral, and the ritual law? And then finally, also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the New and the Old Covenant. Or are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to new Christianity?
No, fair. I can believe
That
it.
is something I've heard before. He does at least know that. That's fair.
Now, but the Christianity in itself, say, is 2,000 years old or even older, yeah? Correct? Now, which means that the Bible was originally written not in English, but in ancient
Koine Greek.
Huh?
In Koine Greek.
Yeah, correct. Now, if we look at the Greek terminology of man...
Yes, and Jesus spoke Aramaic. You could translate things. You acknowledge that.
Where we translate things, but translations are linguistically ambiguous.
That is
As a former
true.
classicist, I know that language can't be translated directly. So, for example, if we look at the translation of certain words into man, so I've got two words here. So I've got malakoi, which means essentially soft, which isn't necessarily directly saying...
Oh man, I remember this. I remember actually learning about this a while back. The whole linguistic error about one of the verses of the Bible.
Man, and then we've got oh god, how do I say that? Arsena koitai, which essentially means prostitutes. Now, if we look at things linguistically,
I'm aware of
we can
this.
pick apart the Bible and say that actually it wasn't saying man shall not sleep with man; it's saying man shall not sleep with prostitutes, which is an entirely different linguistic thing.
I'm not even getting into Leviticus, though.
But no,
my contention is completely New Testament focused.
This isn't Leviticus.
Well, but you said man shall not speak other names. You're talking about Romans.
Well, okay, these words are used throughout the
Right, well,
entire
actually,
Bible.
in Romans 1, it was actually women sleeping with women, so you got your verses wrong. In Romans 1, Paul is prophesying about the end of the world, and he's saying that in the end times, woman will like with woman like, and man will, I think it might say man will like men like. You have to get the verses specifically, but it is agreed upon, and you can agree. This is why tradition is important, and I even say this as a Protestant, is that we believe that Scripture is very important, but also look to tradition. Church tradition has had an unbroken chain affirming matrimony, holy matrimony being one man, one woman, one even as a non-Catholic. I'm glad that Pope Leo has reaffirmed in the last couple of days, and so I'm not even sure your contention, your point. Are you saying that the Bible doesn't affirm marriage as one man, one woman, or are you saying church tradition doesn't affirm marriage one man, one woman?
The Bible doesn't affirm. Well, clearly doesn't affirm.
That is
Charlie is coming with his own receipts, to be entirely fair. It looks like he was actually prepared for that, which I'll give him props for at least. It seems like he's not completely brainless on it.
so you know better than the church fathers?
No, I don't. I'm not saying I know better than the church fathers. What I'm saying is linguistically there is undeniably an error, regardless of what you say. That is
Our lens maybe, but not from the people when they were making these
I
traditions.
agree. They may have got
That
that
doesn't
right, but
matter if what their perspective is when they were making these traditions at the time. If there's a linguistic error, then there's a linguistic error. You can't beat around the bush with that.
Can we move on to the next question, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Not too bad. Not too bad of a debate between them, honestly. It could have been a lot worse for Mr. Sweater Weather over there. Yeah, he held his own pretty well.
So I'm a feminist.
I'm
My
just
question
joking.
is about the role of women, though. What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
Well, thank you for that. Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes.
Why does he always do that? I don't know why he always does that. He always asks, what is a woman? It's so weird. They're still obsessed with that shit.
An adult human female, it's a biological state of being that is also socially experienced. Can I please elucidate just one example of that social experience?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Why would you fucking drag it out? You don't have to do that, man. He's going to answer your question. You don't have to start this whole tangent about what a woman is, especially if it's not relevant to your point. I don't know why she did that.
Okay. So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
So can a woman have a prostate?
Can a woman have a prostate? Biologically speaking, a woman is an adult human female that has a
Why did she have to give the example, man?
biological reality, but it's also social experience, right? So I don't just...
Yeah, it's super easy. Like, can a woman have a prostate?
So as per my definition of woman, I would say that people who have a prostate are biologically male, but they can sometimes be socially treated as women.
Okay, got it. So women can have prostates. Got it. Okay. That's
Well, at least it didn't hang on there too long. I'll give her that.
I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labor in homes that is structured around outdated expectations. So, for example, studies like the OECD's Better Life Index show that women's life expectancy, education levels, professional achievements have risen in countries with higher gender inequality. So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
Yeah.
I would personally say it's a pretty nuanced and multifaceted issue as to why women's happiness is kind of going down or something like that, I think she said, right? But also, like, happiness in general is kind of going down across the board as well. It's like a multifaceted socioeconomic issue, combining a lot of factors. I don't think it could be boiled down to like one or two things.
That's really rich. I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. That's funny. So,
We've always
no, hold on a second. Why are suicide rates going up more for women?
I think that
Aren't
encourages.
they going up for men as well? It's just for everybody at this point, right? You have your male loneliness epidemic. You have your female loneliness epidemic going on right now as well, I believe, right? Yeah, it's for both men and women. And I think it's higher for men too, right? Slightly faster increase. So a little bit faster, but yeah, it's been going up for everybody. I don't know why he's specifying them specifically.
That even if both men and women have become unhappier, men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been
That is true. That is true. I like that. Good job. Good job.
exponential. Can you at least concede that feminism offers only one potential explanation? There could be also other
Of
explanations.
course, obviously, but feminism is the glaring thing in front of us where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappiness up, and we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Bretty Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said, you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control, and all of a sudden women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago. And I just have to ask the question, why is that? Is it working? And maybe there are biological differences between men and women that we should respect. And that
Again, he's completely taken out the nuance in the fact that men's suicide rates and happiness for everybody is going down. All of the bad statistics are going up for everybody. I don't know why he's singling out women. Well, I mean, I know why. It's because he wants that gotcha, but regardless.
I would say that we can recognize that income inequality across a vast swathe of Western countries has increased, which causes all kinds of social ills, a lack of social cohesion, housing price growth doesn't correspond with wage growth, monopolies increasingly become kind of emboldened to interfere with politics, and monopolies don't prioritize social health either. I think that those offer more compelling reasons for a decline in happiness than an increase in freedoms, because just one more thing, on an intuitive basis, generally speaking, people want more freedom, not less.
okay, so if
That
that's
is
true,
true, yeah. Pretty good so far. Pretty good. A little bit of a fumble with the whole gender thing, but luckily they got back on track. So that's good.
why is it? Do you agree that the happiest women in the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but
Every
I think there are
study
certain,
shows, right?
there are certain
and
studies that
objectively,
do-
we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware
I mean,
of.
again, it's like
That's good.
It's a little bit of
That's a good one.
one-liner. The happy
That is a very good clapback. I will admit that. That is very good. I like it.
and the grateful. The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we saw in our country all throughout a single summer. But as a side note, you would agree, objectively, study after study, survey after survey, that the women of the West that are married and have children, especially a lot of children, are far happier than even the ones that earn more money correlated at the same age.
So I also don't.
Even then, even if you want to argue that they're happier with family and stuff like that, which I don't deny, why should you like heavily encourage or even like kind of incentivize that? Let people choose, right? I think that's just generally her stance. Let people have the freedom to choose. And if they want to choose to do that, good for them, you know? But yeah.
think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making.
That's
So I
true.
don't think smiles per capita is a particularly convincing way to measure whether or not we should encourage women to be autonomous. I think we should maximize agency within a fair system that has reasonable parameters because it's expedient, it's good for the economy, it's logical, it's the moral thing, because if we can't prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also, self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable, but so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going
You
to
would
measure
say extremely miserable?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean, but seriously, like, but hold on. I mean, like, that's an important point, though, is that the women in the West have it the best in the world, and yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something fundamentally wrong here. Because the women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs, and the women of sub-Saharan Africa, they have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological undercurrent that is keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without reading your phone and just like, you know, connecting,
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure, then you can answer without it. Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
That is a good point. That is actually a good point on her end. Happiness from survey to survey can mean completely different things, and there's like different levels of happiness. Like somebody checks very happy over here, but this person's very happy might be miserable over here. Kind of thing is why I think she's saying there's a little bit of nuance to checking a box, right? And that's completely true. Yes.
I fully, if you want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like I'm all for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree.
Yeah, absolutely. We agree on many things.
Then we should shut off Muslim immigration to the UK, right? We totally agree.
I think that all religious fundamentalism is bad, and if you take that logic, we should also not allow evangelical Christians into the UK either.
Hold on. So hold on a second. Hold on.
Got him.
That's funny. Hold on. Can you show me a single... Show me, what would your example, because I have 50, of a single Christian country that you would say mistreats women, right?
America.
Oh, really? We had a female woman vice president.
Spicy.
We had a female vice president, a female speaker of the House. Women earn more than men in America.
That is a horrible counterargument. We don't mistreat women. We had a female vice president. That doesn't negate everything else that we have that are issues here. We have a horrible rape culture going on. We have this massive growing issue of like manosphere guys coming up, and we kind of see this affecting people in like K-12 right now. You see all of these kids that are like hyper sexist and everything because of Andrew Tate and all that kind of stuff. You have a bunch of systemic issues going on that I can't really think of off the top of my head. Saying that we have a female vice president doesn't negate everything else that we have that is wrong systemically with America right now.
And in Rwanda, female representation in government supersedes the UK by quite a lot. Do women get treated better in Rwanda?
Okay.
That is true. That is true. She completely flipped this logic on his head.
I might be super off this. Like, is Rwanda Islamic? Like, I'm not totally sure. I don't think it is. Like, is it? Like, I don't know, actually. It's not. So,
she got him on that one.
Islam is a little bit of a side note, but you must be morally clear, because you brought up female genital mutilation, which is...
You are the one who brought up, we have female politicians. That must mean we treated our women here good.
And in Nordic countries where women have high workforce participation and also some state support, they report higher life satisfaction than in more conservative countries, including America. So if your metric is happiness,
just use satisfaction surveys. You just told me they're BS.
So are satisfaction surveys bullshit or not? Because you told me...
Do you acknowledge satisfaction surveys or not? You just told me that they're BS. Do you think they're objective? We can use that as data?
I don't think that...
Yes, sir?
Yeah, that's what I said just a second ago. She fucked up big time. She dismissed his surveys, but now she cites surveys back. That is a big no-no. You do not want to get caught up in the weeds like that and completely just fuck yourself over. Because this guy's sharp. If you say something that contradicts yourself like 2 minutes ago, this guy will catch it.
Do I start bringing this to a close, please?
Okay, I think just one final thing, which is that in which case we get to a really interesting argument about what parts of womanhood can be demarcated to the social and what kinds of womanhood can be demarcated to biological. So, for example, my anatomy is demarcated to the biological, but the fact that I might potentially be a better nurturer than a man, I would demarcate that to the social. You might demarcate that to the biological, in which case we have differing moral scales of value. I would ask why we should necessarily prioritize your moral scale of value, which prioritizes things like the birth rate, when in actual fact there are various other moral scales of value. And if you yourself are a free market American, why is it the case that you would not, like the previous speaker noted,
I've already answered
extend personal freedoms towards all spheres, including a private sphere?
I believe in absolute truth claims, and it's absolutely wrong and bad when a society stops having kids to replace their own population. And then you have to import the third world and you become the third world. It's bad.
I disagree, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It would be very easy to push him on that, but yeah, obviously she ran out of time. She was probably one of the stronger debaters so far, from what I remember. There was a big gap between the first half and now, just because I had computer issues and everything like that, so I don't remember all of what happened in the first half. But yeah, she was a pretty good debater here. Had two major flaws. First of all, elaborating on what a woman is and stuff like that. You don't really want to give him that much ground. And then the second mistake is being hypocritical in dismissing his survey data and then presenting your own survey data. That's also obviously a very big mistake, but overall, she did pretty good.
Good evening, Mr. Kirk. You've obviously devoted a lot of your life to electing, keeping in power Donald Trump, and you did so partly because you said Trump would put Americans first and take them out of foreign conflicts. Should we see how that is going at the moment? Currently, Trump has just accepted a $400 million debt from Qatar, which we're assured is perfectly above board. Billions in arms are going to Saudi Arabia, which they're using to bomb and starve Yemeni children. Not sure how that's in the interest of the United States, but it might be in the interest of the $5.5 billion deal his failed sons are receiving. At the same time, this great president of peace has greenlit mass killings, not just in Yemen, but in Gaza, where he greenlit an invasion called Operation Gideon's Chariot, with the express aim of wiping out the Gazan population. You promised to put America first. Haven't you and your ilk sold America out?
I think he's a little bit nervous. You could see his arm was shaking there. But that is a pretty good, solid start. He did lay down a bunch of facts that Charlie really can't deny. Oh, he's kind of thinking a little bit. You can kind of see it on his face.
Well, I'm glad you have great
Did he just say no?
No.
Well,
Oh, the stone Giga Chad face. He's looking down. Oh my gosh. It looks like he already got destroyed and he didn't even get to say anything. He looks so angry. I think he was shaking too when he said that too.
No.
Oh, he wasn't.
Well, I'm glad you have great intellectual substance and can answer. Because it's all the culture wars for you, isn't it?
Holy shit, this kid's already going into him. It hasn't even been 20 seconds. I like this.
Actually tells you what you're doing, which
Can you
is red.
Can you calm down a little bit? Like, just a little bit? Pounding the table, you're all over the place. No. You want me to go piece by piece? Or would you like me to talk slower?
I think you can...
Number one, Donald Trump is convening a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine.
Holy shit, he's mad. You could tell he is pissed off now.
Joe Biden gave them armaments.
He didn't even let him finish.
But do you really think leverage negotiations work if you cut off all your leverage and scream at one party in the Oval Office? Don't you think that has just emboldened Russia? Because look at the approach.
This kid came here with the freaking blood sports debate mindset. Oh my gosh. Now we're getting interesting. Throughout this entire thing, it's honestly been kind of boring. This is interesting. I like this. It gives me something to scream at.
So President Trump has already ended a war. He's ended an invasion. He's only 130 days into this. And I believe, we do not know. At this point, we are merely speculating, which I think we should not spend our time doing that, because eventually one of us will be right. I believe we'll be right, and I believe we'll see an end to this war.
Didn't Trump say he was going to end this war day one, by the way? Let me check real quick. Give me one sec. Yeah, he said he would end it on day one. And it's been 120 days, Charlie. The student here really needs to bring up that multiple times Donald Trump said on the campaign trail he would end the Russia-Ukraine war day one. And it's been 120 days and he still hasn't done it yet. So he lied.
Talk about 100 billions worth of weapons, because you dodged my question on what was going on in the Middle East, where Trump has just signed enormous arms contracts with Saudi Arabia and with Qatar. And I noticed you ignored the fact that this might have had anything to do with the blatant corruption going on through the Trump coin and going on through giving the very competent sons of Donald Trump billions of investment from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. This is something that is directly embroiling Americans into conflict, but is importantly killing many innocent people. Those nations have been known to terrorize innocent civilian populations. So if you're coming to me and you're objecting to America selling weaponry, why are you defending shilling for the Saudis?
Well, hold on. One is sending weaponry, one is purchasing. Secondly, you do know that the biggest purchase that was announced was commercial airliner, 737, $100 billion. We've heard of Qatar Airways. They purchased $100 billion of commercial airways. You are right, there were some weapons contracts. But I guess the question is, would you rather have Saudi Arabia buy weapons from America or China?
I'd rather they not have American weaponry at cut price rates.
See, I disagree.
Let's talk about Qatar for a second.
Okay, fine.
Why does it matter whether they come from America or China anyways? I don't get that at all. Is it because we make money off of it, or?
You've been talking a lot about Hamas and the evils of Hamas. Can I ask you, who's the main funder of Hamas?
Well, the Palestine
state.
Well, the West actually funds Hamas.
Which state?
Well, Iran funds.
No. Where are the Hamas leaders?
And also Qatar funds Hamas. It is a combination of international relief organizations.
Is this a $400 million jet with the President of the United States on it?
Hold on. First of all, it was not
this
given to
kid's
him
going in hard. Oh my gosh, I like this.
Personally. I understand the optics of it, but it was not given to him personally. It was given to the U.S. government, and under that standard, no U.S. government should ever receive any gifts from any foreign countries whatsoever. It's not given to him personally and not a violation of the.
Then why is he trying to transfer it to his personal library? He is.
Actually. Okay, again, he sent out
You're
a
lying.
statement. This is
Yeah,
way
he's
too
trying to send it to his personal library. You can't deny that. There were a bunch of articles made about that, man.
With the war in the Middle East, do you think it was a defensible decision to tell the Israelis you wanted Trump Gaza, to agree for Israel to invade the Gaza Strip, and to continue to murder thousands of innocent children and civilians in a pointless war? Is that in America's interest? Is that in humanity's interest?
Well, first of all, you should know something about Trump. There's something, if you realize with Trump over the last 10 years, he is quite the social media user and uses hyperbolic language at times. But let me ask you, in the conflict
Jesus
of
Christ, he's dodging it.
Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
He completely just dodged the question, by the way. Holy crap. And you could see the gears in his head were turning when he was stuttering there for a second. Oh my gosh. I hope the kid holds his feet to the fire on that.
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil. But
No.
I think also
Okay, maybe he shouldn't have let it slip there, but he is doing a really good job so far.
that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children in a futile.
Let's zero in on it.
There is no
He's doing good.
justification, Mr. Kirk, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West's security.
You've made that point, but
It's not a point, it's a moral truth, isn't
okay,
it?
yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk. Israel at its
He's
holiest
getting
day,
mad, dude. He's getting mad. He's been getting overwhelmingly steamrolled throughout this entire discussion so far. Ooh, boy. You could tell he is pissed off.
of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War. On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the idea—
He's doing a good... This is something that these kinds of debaters will do. This is something that like blood sports debaters in particular, kind of like Charlie Kirk or a certain brand of them will do, which is a massive appeal to emotion. He's speaking with passion. He's appealing to emotion with this whole, they're killing the Jews kind of thing, because it really does tug at the heartstrings, and it surprisingly works a lot more than you actually think it does. There's a reason why his audience still listens to him and believes him on all of this stuff, instead of going towards the more logical rationalist left when it comes to this whole conflict kind of thing, right? It's because they are very good at masquerading their lies and all of their bullshit with appeals to emotion.
And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it, and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves. The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded.
From a persuasion standpoint, a debate standpoint, that was a pretty strong speech. I'm not saying it's correct, obviously, as I just talked about how it is a very fallacious tactic to talk like this and use this kind of language to counter everything that he's saying. But from a debate standpoint, yeah, that's pretty strong. And backing it up with the emotion that he had, that is also a pretty strong move, and also like a propaganda technique.
And I think you will have to reckon one day that you have reckoned with.
Interesting. I want to close on this. So can you tell me what African countries currently ongoing a civil war?
Believe it or not, I know about Sudan because
Okay,
I'm
good.
not an idiot.
How about what Southeast Asian country has an ethnic cleansing going on right now?
Myanmar.
Good. And you have strong opinions on both sides?
Unlike you, I take an effort to be informed about foreign policy and to come to conclusions. You are a culture warrior. I believe when everything is done, Mr. Kirk, people will see you and the people you supported as corrupt, as selling the country out to the lowest bidder, and of doing irreparable damage to a country I'm sure we all deep down love.
The difference—
I think you will have to reckon with that.
Difference
Mr. Kirk.
is when—
Damn, he walked away too before he can even finish. That is a power move right there. This is the most impressive performance so far at this debate. Everything else up until this point was way too civil, surface level talking points just bouncing back and forth like it's ping pong. And then this kid comes out of nowhere and plays Charlie at his own game that he does at all of his events and stuff like that. I like this kid. I like this dude so far. Nice job. And then he walks away before Charlie can even say his last thing. Oh my gosh, that is good. Oh, my. I wish the rest of this thing was like this. I'm not gonna lie. It would be a lot easier to sit through. Look at how pissed off he looks, too. He knows that he just got completely mobbed by this dude. Holy shit. He's not even speaking. He's not even saying... Oh, wait.
The difference is when we get our way, we'll still have a country, and your country will be a third world hellhole. Next question.
Ooh, he was fucking pissed
All we've got
off.
time for today, Mr. Kirk.
Oh man, he had to take like a solid 20 seconds to muster that up. Oh, jeez.
Israel versus Hamas. Good guy versus bad guy. Russia versus Ukraine. Who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
Both are bad, one is worse.
Which way round?
Russia is worse than Ukraine.
Okay,
Oh.
so why haven't we pursued that?
What do you mean?
Well, it seems to me that in the whole of the current US proposition, that Ukraine is being the bad guy.
In what way? We funded Ukraine upwards to $200 billion.
Absolutely, but...
We just signed a mineral deal with Ukraine, not Russia.
Yeah, but you are expecting Ukraine to give up 20% of its territory to someone who invaded it.
Well, is Crimea part of Russia or Ukraine?
Ukraine.
That's where we don't agree.
Well, I'm afraid that's part of international treaty. That's not up for grabs.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's hold on.
Bill's gonna get mugged by an old man next. Why the fuck am I saying mugged? I don't know.
I have a problem with a person being propped up as a government we're sending $200 billion to that refuses even to face his voters.
Okay, I can't agree with you factually on that at all.
Okay.
I mean, constitutionally, Ukraine is not able to hold an election because it's under military law at the moment, and that's just a matter of fact.
Again, he can, as a prime minister or president, he can do whatever he wants.
He can't.
Well, Charlie, do you not know that different governments operate in different ways? Just because America can hold elections during wars and stuff like that doesn't mean that the other country can do it. That might not be how they work. Holy hell. I don't know if they can personally, but like, does he not comprehend the concept that different governments can function differently, right?
Okay, all right, we're going to just go back
and
and
an
forth.
executive order and change their constitution.
Okay.
Neither can the
Yeah,
American
exactly. It's not in their constitution. This guy knows what's up.
president either. So
Okay.
hopefully there's a bit of...
He could even do a ceremonial election to see where he actually stands with the
I
people.
think we call those opinion polls.
Yes, and they're very negative.
Firmly ahead in the opinion.
Again, but you would agree that a person that holds on to power without
Nice.
the election of the sovereign is pretty questionable.
No, not in those circumstances.
Okay, then we disagree.
No, okay, that's fine. That's fine. But give me another reason why you
They are the most corrupt country in Europe that never even met the most remote standards of joining NATO. Do you not know where a lot of this money is going?
I don't disagree that there is a problem with corruption, but the most corrupt country in Europe, are you sure about that?
I'd have to think. I'd have to double or triple
This
think
dude
about that.
is-
But they're very.
Holy shit. He doesn't even need to resort to blood sports stuff. This dude's like oozing confidence, especially for his age.
You know, let's face it, we are talking about comparison with some of the states you're doing business with in the Gulf.
Oh, of course, but we're not giving them money. They're giving us money. That's a difference, right? Saudi Arabia.
Oh, so it's fine.
Well, hold on a
So
second.
It's morally acceptable to take money from corrupt people.
Well, hold on. First of all, as far as morally acceptable, you do what's best for the benefit of your country.
Charlie. Holy hell. He's getting dog walked again. Holy fuck. This is... I don't know why it's so funny. He's being ran circles around by an old professor guy. I don't know why that's funnier than a student doing it. He's just standing there so casual as he does it. I love it. It's the calm, casual confidence that gets me, man. I'm enjoying this so much.
I've had enough of your time.
No, that's a fair contention.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
He held his own world too. I was kind of thinking it was going to be too academic, but
everybody.
bro freaking just stood there with his old man posture and just completely dog walked him again, like demolished him. I don't know why I keep saying dog walk, but He destroyed him without even having to resort to blood sports. Holy shit. So overall, how did this debate thing go? The first few were pretty boring. I'm not gonna lie. It was actually pretty boring watching those ones. Not very much explosiveness going on. It was kind of like ping-ponging back and forth, very surface level critiques. And then you have the girl coming along who held her own pretty well, not gonna lie. Couple of mistakes, but overall pretty good. And then you have the other kid who I thought was pretty nervous at first because he was shaking and stuff, but I honestly think that was more anger that he had pent up in him, because holy shit, he went in hard on Charlie, and it was so nice to see. It's like very cathartic seeing that kind of stuff take place, not gonna lie. He was not expecting that at all, as you could see by his face, especially at the end when you can see his face. He's like and then you have the old dude that just came out of nowhere, the old professor, and he just stands there with the old man posture and is just absolutely shooting down every single thing that Charlie tries to say so confidently, not even phased at all whatsoever. Man, it started out slow but ended with a bang. Thank goodness it did, because I honestly didn't think this video was gonna be very long. But yeah, if you want to see this whole uncut video, since this is going to be put behind YouTube members, join YouTube members for this whole uncut debate breakdown. Make sure to like, subscribe, check out Patreon for full access to the Discord server that I have. Ko-Fi is down there with all my social media links. And then you have my personal training website where I specialize in weight loss. I'll help you get your summer body and stuff like that. I don't want to leave a very long sponsored segment or anything at the end, so I'll just kind of leave it there. You can go schedule a consultation with me if you want. And other than that, yeah, see you guys in the next video.